Well, hey again there, my friends. My name's Glenn, and this is the Cactus Atlas, and this is one of our annual Thanksgiving update videos that we've been doing for the past couple years. So plan for a little bit of a casual adventure while I kind of catch you up on some of the happenings in the life of the Cactus Atlas. I wouldn't be surprised if this was somewhat familiar to some of you, or very familiar. As I'm at a place that we probably come here more than anywhere else on our channel throughout the years, but we are at the site of something known as the Sears Cay ruins, which are a set of Hohokam ruins, pre-Columbian culture of indigenous people that lived out here in the desert. I think these are probably like 800, 900-year-old ruins from a culture that nobody really knows a lot about anymore, although the ancestors, the DNA of these folks is thought to be around in the form of other modern tribes. The ways and customs and thoughts of the people have been kind of lost to time, though, is what I'm saying. But anyway, we're going to be walking up right up there at the very top. It looks bad, but it actually isn't. It's actually a pretty easy hike. And I actually almost forgot to say, I know for some of you, seeing me without a beard and facial hair is probably pretty shocking. And don't worry if you don't like it. I think all of our content that we have filmed, months worth of content already that you haven't seen yet, I am fully bearded. So kind of a temporary measure for something that, well, I'm not going to worry about. But anyway, you can see me without a beard. So being that it's Thanksgiving and I always start these off this way every year, I want to say some quick thanks to all of you viewers that come to the channel and watch. I mean, most likely those that are here to watch this today are the core group. And yeah, that's why we do it. If people weren't watching the videos, I don't think we'd be doing this anymore. At least not as frequently as we've come to do with weekly releases. So seriously, a heartfelt thanks from Amy and I. Amy being the editor of our channel, behind the scenes, my wife. And yeah, seriously, thank you. We've grown a lot in 1 year. Maybe I'll start there. If you watched last year's video, I filmed it right after getting laid up, being part of a huge company layoff. I work in software engineering field, so ended up getting laid off. Decided to take a couple, I said at the time, like 2 to 4 months to just take some time, invest some time in growing this. And we really did. I think we were around 16,000 subscribers last year this time, if I remember correctly. And we surpassed 30,000, so we about doubled in 1 year our audience. So I think that's pretty substantial for us. I was delighted. And perhaps equally as important, maybe more important at this point, is on other platforms. Instagram, for example. We were about 600 followers a year ago. And now we're over 43,000 followers on there. So that completely exploded. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why I think that is. And it will affect some of the future programming on this channel. Try to tap into some of that success. But essentially, yeah, we found something that worked for us, I guess you could say. So yeah, the amount of growth we experienced on those two platforms, mind blown. Wasn't expecting that much growth when I set to kind of grow the channel up a rung or two, like I said, which is one reason why I've been hanging on longer and have delayed a return back to my normal career as a software engineer, because we found a lot more success doing this than I had thought, both in terms of viewership and financially, but certainly nowhere close to my earning potential as a software engineer. So I still do fully plan to get back into that, and maybe that's kind of a good segue into getting into the future announcements portion and what I think you can expect out of this channel going in the future. So anyway, yeah, tremendous growth on our channel and Instagram, and it's just really a weird, interesting ride. when I got laid off, which should have been about a year ago at this point, I decided why just sit idly. I just started like throwing down and doubling down on the amount of content we were producing for several months. So a lot of that growth is from releasing twice a week instead of once a week, which we only do once a week again. We kind of slow down again, as well as shorts every day or reels every day, 7 days a week for several months. So I think part of it was some elbow grease and just hammering, and doing it that way. So there's something to be said about that. And of course, once we dialed back for various reasons, still great growth and very pleased with what I see, but certainly the frequency kind of goes down if you don't feed the machine as much. So probably marketing 101 for some people, but yeah, still very impressed and quite amazed when you consider we've been at this for over 5 years now. We might be in the year 6. And in the first 5 years, like on Instagram, for example, it took us 5 years to get 600 followers. Then we changed the formula a little bit, tried something different, saw that it was working, and went, like I said, from 600 followers a year ago to 43. And a lot of that growth came from the first couple months after I was laid off, because that's when we were doing the most frequent. So we still get a lot of growth over there, but a lot of that injection came in very short order. And I learned a lot of good lessons that hopefully we can keep doing for future success. And I know some of you are thinking, well, you're on the right track. Why stop now? And I guess all I'm going to say about that is maybe the fiscally responsible voice in my head. I've done a lot of business planning, looking into seeing what it would take to even get the Cactus Atlas to pay all of the household bills instead of a portion. Keep in mind, we only subsist over AdSense revenue, which anybody that's into this business knows you have to do a lot more than just that for most people to make, a living selling merch, selling a product. Maybe you wrote a book and you can use your audience's numbers to help sell something, Patreon, things like that. And it's something, I guess I would say, that I've looked into, and my math, I can't come out to a point where, based on our niche, that I could see myself making anywhere remotely as much as I can as a software engineer. So it seems irresponsible to do that. Now, granted, there's the argument of, well, some people say do what makes you happy in life. That's more important than money. And there's a lot to be said about that, and I can understand it. But a lot of the people that I hear talk that kind of talk, or celebrities and people that found their success, so it might be a little easier said than done for some. But at the best, I think I found a way forward to do that, but that would have been for 2 people, me and Amy, working full-time just to pay the bills, meaning we could afford, it would help us do this lifestyle. But being as there's a lot of variance, it could be fickle at times, just not comfortable yet with that. This whole plan, this whole YouTube thing is meant for the future, building something that provides a paying hobby or a supplementary revenue stream for when I get closer to my retirement years. So I have something to do. Let's say knock on wood, but there ain't much wood here. If I'm healthy enough to do it. But that plan hasn't changed. I think that's still absolutely the current trajectory and plan, and always has been. So then why, would you ask, why has it taken me then like a year to figure all of this out? It's a little bit of a complex story. There's a lot of parts to it. Camp view kind of is a big part of that. My decision to essentially start a new side business, because I wanted to start a new side business, but essentially I had some goals that were to support specifically a transition to another software engineering career like I previously had. So I did a lot of soul searching, after last year's layoff, really taking into account the things in my life that have made me happy in my career and the things that I don't like. And really where I netted out is, as a software developer, software engineer, up to this point, I think every company I've worked for has essentially been a marketing function. And even though one of the huge chunks of my career was working on a software product, which is what I want to do, make no mistake, it was certainly not, the product wasn't the main thing the company was selling. It was to support it was a marketing function basically, but it was an app. So I was happy doing it. But what I'm really searching for now is to go work, I would say for the first time in my entire career, and I've been at it a long time, on an actual software product where the product is the thing, right? The software that the company is selling, to work on that, not building apps and things to support something else that they're selling. Essentially trying to stay further away from the marketing side of things. I've done it for longer than I'm willing to say, but I've had my fill, I think, at this point for various reasons. And I think a lot of software developers understand and know, oftentimes if you can work on a good software product, I think it's fulfilling. I also think you're treated better. Because if you've not worked for marketing and you're looking at getting the development, expect a lot of last minute. So that's all I'll say about that. Last minute and overtime. That might be something relevant to bring up now too, is that even for those of you that have been watching for a while, you may not realize this, but for most of the 5-6 years we've been doing this is a second job for me. I've almost the whole time been full-time employed, except I got laid off. And I'm also the type that doesn't just watch the clock and work 40 hours a week. I'm salaried. I have to do what's needed. A lot of times that means overtime, working weekends and evenings. I'm not the only one in life that has to do that. But then I've been trying to do this on top of it. And while I really enjoy this and I'm passionate about it, make no mistake, I've been burning the candle at both ends for a very long time, and all of my spare time that I had really went into either making videos here on weekends, holidays, vacation days, all of my spare time, as well as the planning for those, reading books, planning itineraries, all of that. It's like never ending, and helping with editing too, oftentimes, off and on. So it is a lot, and 5 years of doing that, man. Anyway, let's continue. So for the couple rude folks, we don't have many, but a couple people at times they kind of critique and will say things like, I didn't really seem well researched on a topic, and I agree. The point of what we've been doing is more to be a vlog, a travel vlog, a diary, where I might spot off some facts, but we're not doing like collegiate level documentaries here, although I guess the people that critique that, I guess maybe I should take it as a compliment, because maybe they see something I don't, and I'm just good enough to be put into that category. But people will say, oh, you're late. There have been a couple rude people that have said, oh, you guys are lazy, blah, blah, blah. I assure you, laziness has nothing to do with it. Not even close. I'm going to try to wrap up the business portion of this and get to the point with some of the choices we're going to be making with some future content. So I'm telling you all this because it really feeds into that. And getting to probably the biggest news. You can see right up here on top of the hill, as well as right here. Pretty overgrown with grass, but you start to see these stone foundations, which are part of a hilltop fortress. Probably 800, 900 years old, if I remember correctly. Before Columbus set foot onto the Western world. Before the Spanish made their presence felt in southern Arizona. It is a good place to come and reflect, though. I do like it for that. Even if I'm not talking about Hohokam history. The Hohokam, of course, are the name of the people that inhabited this fortress way back when. So basically the plan since we last talked was to grow the channel up a rung or two. I think we were successful in that. A couple months after getting laid off, I could have just gone back to work then and said mission accomplished, but didn't. Really because it was more, I was dragging my feet about just going back through my traditional means, going on my LinkedIn profile and turning on ready to work. I actually did that briefly, and as usual got bombarded by, as a developer, you'll get bombarded by a lot of third-party headhunting agencies and stuff. And no offense if you enjoy working with those, or if you do work with those. I've worked with one that was pretty legit, but the most of them, it's a joke. They're in it for themselves, and it's very much about making money. So oftentimes they don't have your best interest in mind, in my experience anyway. So I didn't want to do that route. I didn't want to go back down that same route. and then kind of analyzing, well, what I've liked and disliked about my careers. The best one of the bunch, the one that I got laid off from, and I worked for, I want to say 8 years total or something like that, was the only one that I found on my own. I didn't go through a headhunting agency. I applied directly to the company, and it worked out the best. Everything else, I kind of, especially early on in my career, just usually someone would knock on the door, you looking for a job? Yeah. I'd say, who's the client? Every time it's been a really large, you would know every company I've worked for, trust me, very big companies. And then you hear the name like, oh yeah, I'll go work for that, without doing much research. And most places I've worked has been in the number of years, not months or days or anything like that. But that's really where I was just kind of hung up. It's like, I don't want to fall into the same traps. And I had a realization that, what I haven't been picking my own social networks. I let my social networks choose me by the nature of where I end up, where the wind takes me. I think that's a problem. And number two, just not really realizing that, I spend all my spare time building apps and software products, and that's where my true passion is. And even though my last job was very much worked on an application, complex one, I would say, pretty complex for years, I want something, where that product is the main thing. So anyway, so it's not that I was, it's kind of dragging my feet coming to these realizations. And once I did, I started looking, I started identifying companies that I thought I'd like to work for, that all big names, all stuff I guarantee you some of you are customers of, and started seeing the kinds of things and kind of feeling out what I really wanted to do. So this would have been maybe like coming into summer of last year. And then from there, some of these jobs I've been really upping the bar for the kinds of things that I'm going for. Even though not what I've gone for in the past, they've always been senior positions. I really wanted to kind of go into a more competitive pool, I guess, and look at some pretty competitive companies. And I noticed one of them that I want to work for, would be happy working for, on even the application was like, they're like, we want you to tell us about a software product that you've developed on your own time, and not only talk, it's not only to talk about the technology, but all of the other aspects of running that business, from SEO, just, all of the other things you would learn from doing that. And that's really where CampView, my other channel, came from. CampView, by the way, there's a YouTube channel, which is really not the main point of that. The main point is an application that you would use on your phone or web browser, whatever, and the YouTube channel is supplementary to that. So what I've been up to there is really building something to serve as a talking point for some of these jobs that I've been applying to. A, because I think it's a good thing to do, but B, one company in particular was looking for specifically that type of thing for the job I was applying for. So then I started thinking, I could, lots of different reasons for splitting off the camping content out of the Cactus Atlas that I won't bore you with, but basically that was solving a couple different problems, and that's where that whole thing came to be. So that guided my summer, guided where we went. We did a lot more like national parks, state parks, you name it, this summer, which normally I'm shying away from doing. I prefer the off-roading, the history, like most of you do, I think. But out of necessity to get all these national forest campgrounds, and everywhere I went, I kind of had to go to all these other places. So that's why this summer you've seen a lot of content that's not our best, I would say, like off-roading to historic places of interest. There is some, but, and you can see it in the numbers, I could definitely see if you guys look at the views for the videos that we've been releasing compared to some of them earlier in the year where we were more off-roading to some cool places, I think you'll quickly see the difference. So something I knew we'd take a hit on, but I'm doing it for longer term, bigger reasons. Okay, so all of this basically culminates with my last trip of the summer to support all of these things and to build content for the Cactus Atlas. Content that you have not seen yet. There's a whole other road trip I took, probably another 10 weeks of content that you're gonna see going into next year to keep the stove warm for the Cactus Atlas. But I took one last trip in early September, pretty major trip, both to finish getting my CampView content gathering done for the year, as well as to bank content for the Cactus Atlas, knowing I'd be returning to a career, predicting that, maybe in the first few months, because I'm trying to learn the new business and I've got a lot of pressure, you know, there. Maybe not even time off saved up yet, depending on the company's policies and all that kind of stuff. A lot of uncertainty. I always like to bank for the future, which isn't a new thing, because if you follow our channel, I've always worked that way. Most of the content you see while I've been working a job has been my vacations. Like, I'll take a week off, make 10 videos, dump them on Amy, go back to work, and maybe not film anything for like a month or two until we start to get low, and then go back and replenish. So you've always seen things that have been filmed probably months in advance of now. For example, the content you're seeing right now in Utah, probably in the last couple weeks, is from the end of July of the summer. So you could see a lot of time has passed, for me anyway. But I know for you it works, because a lot of the places I go are pretty timeless. In the desert, you can't tell the difference visually often between, well, the astute eyes can if you know and you live here, but you know, between winter and summer, really there's not much difference in how things look. The locations are evergreen in terms of the subject matter. So that formula has worked really well for us. We don't have to keep up with trends or whatever, because we're dealing with the past and history. So we've always worked that way. So me stocking up for the future isn't anything new. But the intent this time is to stock up to prepare to go back to a career in case I can't work, and we just want to keep the oven warm, because we don't want to completely walk away from this. We've worked too hard, and I think there's a lot of potential for other side things that branch off of this that I want to do, businesses, stuff like that. But that was really the goal there, and to get all of the stuff for Campview. So on that trip in September is where the real fun kind of starts, my current journey in life, which I'll just kind of not beat around the bush, is going to delay my job search by a few months. So let's get into that, and then we'll head back down the hill, and then we'll start our drive. Kind of focus on the landscape and some of the cool stuff around here while we talk. But anyway, on that last trip in September, probably a week into it, or maybe my last few days that I was there, I noticed something about my body that was weird and not normal. And I wasn't overly concerned about it at the time, but it was something to go get checked out. I was like, okay, something's weird here. And in fact, you know, doing the WebMD stuff and all that, I'm like, well, the thing I thought it might have been, I was like, I should probably be safe. And on that trip, I've been pretty much camping in tents, almost, I would say exclusively up to a certain point, this whole summer, sometimes weeks at a time. I opted on that trip to switch to very cheap hotels, like boutique hotels and things like that, in the middle of nowhere, just to be closer to civilization in case I needed to run to an urgent care or something, you know, during the trip. And then, you know, this thing was nagging at me, and then I just decided to cut that trip a couple days short and head home, because, you know, when I notice things like that, I know some guys are afraid and put things off. But for me, there are some things that I know I could do a lot better in life. But once something starts nagging at me, I have to attack it head on. So came back home from that trip to kind of figure out what was going on there. And then that kind of now gets you closer to now, the modern times. I'm filming this it's probably 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving at this point, but you know, it's in November. So all of this fun started, I would say, mid-September. It's probably the time frame we're talking about. Now, I'm not as personal on YouTube as a lot of other YouTubers I watch. A lot of them on a weekly basis will talk about all the little niggling things in their lives that are disrupting them, sometimes bigger things. And I watch them. I don't knock anybody for doing that if that's their thing. But over here, we don't talk about ourselves too much. Like, you know, you don't really see a lot of our personal lives or hear much about it. Knowing that I got laid off is the most personal thing I've ever mentioned on the channel that I can remember anyway. So you're not going to get full details as to what's going on. And you know, even in my personal life, I don't share a lot of that stuff with anybody. I'm very private in that regard. So very few people really, only those closest to me really know the full story at this point. But what I do want to say is that I'm not looking at this, or this isn't like a I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. You know, I ain't dying, I don't think. So I think you're gonna have to put up with me a much longer time, but long story short, came back, got checked out, and that started off a whole sequence of things where now I'm gonna basically, for the next, in order to fix my problem, I have to do some stuff that's gonna pretty much take me out of the game for a few weeks, for sure, maybe a couple months, you know, with recovery factored into that and all that kind of stuff. So pretty much my, you know, and the nature of what it is something that I think trying to work and find a job at this exact juncture isn't gonna work. So fortunately, Amy and I saved money smartly, and we were prepared for this kind of thing in life. So there's no, I'm not looking for sympathy, or I don't want any sympathy. All I'm trying to get across here, and is really getting to the main point of what's coming after this, is that got some health stuff I got to deal with. Life came in, said, "You sit down, son. You're gonna have to deal with this," and that's what's going on. And it is going to affect my ability to make content, specifically to film stuff. So now that I told you all this, you know, it's also going to delay my job search, because now I'm probably likely looking at early 2025 getting back into that. And when I get to that point, the level of urgency is going to be higher than it would have been when I started in September to really get that squared away, maybe further delaying my ability to make videos. So there's kind of like a stacking of effects that I'm predicting that could really affect that. But it's so important, Amy, to keep this thing going that we have a strategy we're going to employ to kind of keep the oven warm for an extended amount of time. So when I'm back at it, you know, in the future, whatever that looks like, whatever the frequency is, not going to make any statements about that. I don't know if we'll continue to be weekly in the far off future, maybe go to a monthly thing, kind of entertaining a lot of stuff, but whatever gives me the best balance between working a career, not killing myself, and doing the stuff I love like this is going to be, that's going to dictate whatever ends up happening. But so that's the main thing. Came back from my last trip, was already in the process of starting the job searches, identifying the companies I wanted to work for, and then bam, life kind of steps in and says, before you do that. So that's all I'm gonna say. I know it's long-winded, and I wanted to provide the explanation because it, you know, a lot of people have committed their Thursdays to this based on the comments and views. You know, there's usually like 2,000 to 4,000 of you on the average that tune in religiously and comment and all of that. So, and I know that's not trivial because our content's usually bordering an hour without commercials, like 50 minutes, 45 minutes. And with the commercials, I wouldn't be surprised if it puts you at an hour. So, I mean, you have a lot of choices out there of what you could watch. In an hour, I mean, you could watch something on a major network television, a very well-produced sitcom or something, and devote an hour of your life on a Thursday. And so it's not lost on me that, you know, even though our numbers are probably small to others, it's still a lot of people in my mind, you know, choose to devote their time to coming back week after week. So I'm really, out of courtesy and thinking of you folks specifically, that's why I like to go into this level of detail, because some of you apparently like what we do and I want to keep you happy, basically. So I know that's a lot of explanation, and I told you I wanted to do right by a lot of you watching this stuff religiously, but we do take a lot of the comments to heart and feedback we get. And one of our strategies to keep the oven warm is, this trip that I took in September was to a region that is very much under snow during the winter. It was not when I was there. So releasing that kind of content off season, probably the worst possible time of the year, is this Utah trip you're watching still has a few episodes left, I think a couple more, before it's completely done. But then we were gonna go straight into this next trip, but I was kind of like, man, we did that last year with a trip up to Lassen Volcanic National Park, released that in the dead of winter. when most people wouldn't be going there, you know? It's the same idea. So we want to delay releasing that. We call it a season. These trips, like 10 weeks is a season on the Cactus Atlas. So we've been kind of figuring out a way, how do we extend the oven staying warm and also simultaneously push that out just a tad, not a lot. So it's more relevant within the time frame it's released. So that's really the main problem we've been trying to solve with all this going on, is how do we do that and then even extend the oven being warm for me so I have more time to get back into the saddle, both with career, my health, all of that. So how does one do that when one is about to not be able to make videos anymore for a little bit? And the answer to that is what we've done actually last year. One of the things that gave us really big success, I would say, on Instagram. I do believe we do get some conversion from that. Other people I've talked to think there's no conversion between folks on Instagram and YouTube, and I beg to differ. We do see accelerated growth on YouTube when we're doing well on Instagram, although it's definitely not a one-to-one, because if it was, we'd have something like 70,000 followers on YouTube if it was a one-to-one conversion factor for people heading over here. But I think there's something there, at least for us. So I'm looking at the lessons of why we were successful over there. I'm looking at analytics for YouTube for things we've done. And I think I have the answer, and I know some of you are not going to like it. And I'm sure we'll hear in the comments about it, but I'd like you to hear my rationale. And really who I'm speaking to when I say that are the folks that like our traditional flavor of me just casually running around for 50 minutes a week, like rambling casually about stuff. It's those folks that prefer that over what I'm going to be shipping out for a little bit, that I'm pretty much appealing for you to just hang tight. If you don't like what you're gonna see for the interim, hang tight, don't go anywhere. I know we've lost viewers to this before, and I know you can't please everybody, but you know, let me just kind of get into what I'm talking about. If you've been around a long time, you're very familiar with our AI voice, the fictional voice of my truck, Slim. We kind of personified him a little bit, so kind of taking cues from Knight Rider, a show like that. So it's not just straight up using the AI voice, it's a character we've written in. Amy and I are the writers, so you have human beings writing. We're not using AI to write all of the scripts. But a lot of people just dislike AI out of the box. I get it. I'm not here to change your mind about it or justify, I guess, too much. But we are going to be producing a round of content. We're going to stuff it in between this last trip that I've got that Amy hasn't even started editing yet, to give Amy some breathing room, because Amy is going to probably need to spend some of her time helping me. So I'm thinking about her too, so she doesn't get overloaded. So I've been in the editor's chair since September making documentaries, but they're basically documentaries about videos you've already seen, but with Slim as the narrator, and then some live action comments from me in the field saying things here and there. A formula that, if you look at our numbers and you just strictly look at the numbers, would suggest is more successful than my traditional flavor. If you look at Instagram, we went from 600 followers to 40,000 almost exclusively using an AI voice. Very rarely do you hear me talk on there. And if you go through our back catalog, with the exception of these trail guides I was doing to support another campaign I just abandoned, some partnership with Onyx I was looking into, off-road software, those videos have always done more views on the average than others, some of them being like our top 24 off-roading destinations, which is primarily, that's actually the formula. If you want to know what the future content's going to be like, go watch our 2023 top 10 off-roading videos from last year. Look at the viewer count on that. There are some exceptions where I'm the main host, but watch the video, understand the flavor, and then explain to me, I guess, if I'm just looking at numbers, and then look at the numbers of what I do now, where I might get like 4,000 views a video compared to 100,000 views a video, and you do the math. I think at the very least there's more to test, is all I'm going to say when it comes to that. But my analytics at this point, with a year's worth of data, by and far tell me using an AI voice as a narrator, mixing in me saying a few comedic things and becoming more of the comic foil of the show, is a way more successful formula than the traditional stuff. So I don't feel bad about that either, by the way. But I know some of you really dislike it a lot, and feel free to continue to comment and say it, because comments really have driven a lot of our decisions, and even comments about that. But I started thinking about it. You'll get like 5 people that will say something that they really don't like it. We're gonna stop watching your channel. And when you're kind of new at this, you're like, oh God, I don't want to lose anybody. But what you're not paying attention to are the thousands of people that are watching it, not commenting either way, but clearly somebody's watching it and enjoying it. So there's something to be done, to be tested, I think, for the Cactus Atlas. And it gives my content a lot more longevity, in that I can go back and make videos about places I've already been to, but now do more historical, well-researched things that properly tell the history of some of these ghost towns I visit to. When I'm there, I'm just rehearsing half-remembered facts because I'm so busy going from place to place to place. It's more of a casual vlog type of thing. And then some of you will complain and say, well, you know, don't be as lazy, do better quality stuff. Well, there you go. This is my answer to that. And it's something I would rather make documentaries full-time, and I would be completely happy being behind the scenes and never seeing or hearing from me. That's just my personality. I'd have no problem with that. But for those of you that dislike it, also know that I don't take it as an insult. If anything, I take it as a compliment, because essentially you're saying you prefer this ugly mug and my blah 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 over the AI thing. So one could look at it as a compliment, and I think most of you mean it that way. But yeah, so that's going to be our strategy, because now, so Amy doesn't do a lot of narration historically. I don't know if she dislikes it or likes it or whatever, but I think we both just prefer using the Slim AI, that voice that we cultivated, because it just has like a more professional narrator voice sound, like a Mike Rowe is what I'm thinking of, or this is stretching it a little bit, but you know, who's the guy? Sam Elliott, somebody like that. I wanted a personality for the truck, and I can't afford to pay a human narrator. If you think I can, you're wrong. So it's the next best thing, and some people even don't realize that it's AI. So, and I'm not trying to pull one over anybody, but I had an old coworker once that found my stuff eventually and said, oh, did you guys hire a professional narrator? I guess in a way, kinda. I have a subscription for one, but and we've even had comments on here because the AI is getting better all the time. So this voice, a lot of breathing noises, it just kind of has more natural things built into it. I think most people can tell it's artificial to an extent, but you know, just trying out that formula you've seen on other shows like the History Channel, like Mythbusters. Think of something like that. It's kind of a mix of a narrator going between a narrator and segments and then live action stuff, and it's kind of the same idea, although I can't afford to hire a human narrator. So Amy and I enjoy it, just so you know. We think it adds kind of a dynamic thing to it. And once again, at the end of the day, analytics, 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 and numbers. So part of what we're going to be doing is to provide a way that Amy and I can make more content by not having to refilm stuff for the time being. And I don't have to talk. I don't have to be on camera during a time I don't want to be on camera. And now both Amy and I can be the voice of Slim. You see where I'm going? And as I've said before, I have plans to translate all this content into the different languages. So the software I use excels at that. And using an AI voice makes that more feasible, and I can't afford translators and people doing this in different languages. So there's a lot more than meets the eye with that. So, but at the end of the day, if you really don't like it, I mean, I guess as much as I hate to say it, don't watch it. But if you like us for the traditional stuff, there's a ton more coming, and I'll probably always do it. So it's not the end. But if you really want to support us through this time, the best thing you could do is watch our stuff, hopefully because you want to, and give it a chance. and hopefully you'll learn something, because most of what I'm doing is very history oriented, very fact oriented, and a lot more research is going into some of these places that I've been to where I didn't properly tell the story the first time around, if at all. So I think there's lots of positives to that. The way the schedule's looking now, the first round of that, I think, if I remember correctly, is going to be around mid-December, where we're doing another top 10 off-roading destinations video, just like last year's. Same exact formula, exactly the same, different locations. Only difference is I'm splitting it into 2 videos. So I'm splitting it into the spots 10 through 6 as the first video, and spots 5 through 1 is the second video, just because looking at the retention of the first one, it's kind of a long video. So splitting it up, I thought, was the wise choice here. But if you want to know what it's going to be like, watch last year's top 10 off-roading videos, and then you pretty much know the formula and what to expect out of, I'm not talking like, 6 months worth of stuff. I'm talking maybe a couple months of some stuff, even with some live stuff I filmed mixed in, to break up the stuff, the AI stuff, and cater to the folks that don't like it. So that's basically what's upcoming, but you're gonna start seeing it, I predict, mid-December for sure, with the top 10, and I may even squeeze off a couple extras that we release off cycle, like on Mondays or something, to make some extra money, basically, in this downtime that I'm gonna have every, why not make a bigger paycheck if we can by releasing more, which we've proven works. And just say once again, thank you all for coming back. The audience that's going to watch this video is the audience that comes back week after week, let's face it. And Amy and I are so appreciative for what you guys do by watching and supporting us the way you do in the comments and coming back for more every week. And I never want to end doing this. I want to do this till the day I die. And I'm hoping that day when I die is, ripe old age, and then I'm healthy enough into retirement age and all that stuff to continue doing this for a long time to come. So I'm not trying to cause panic or make anybody think, oh, is he in dire straits? No. That's not what I'm saying. Got to take some time for myself. And in the meantime, we just don't want to shut off the water completely. We want to keep the pipes being used, and our strategy for doing so is we're going to test the validity of doing more of this AI narrated content as a test and out of necessity. And then we'll be back. Like I said, we have a full road trip, very lengthy, probably the best thing I filmed all year. I'm really excited to get to that, but went to some locations that were bucket list locations, a lot of historical locations of interest, some of the finest, I would say. So there's lots to look forward to if you like to hear me blah, 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 the usual thing. And then once we get through this interim, I'm sure we'll be back at it again, doing the stuff you guys love. But thanks again for understanding and watching. And we'll have another episode next week as usual. So come on back then, and see you next time.